Hello, everyone. My name is Shamel Yamofia, and today we will be talking about should you skip the SAT or ACT and why? I am the founder of Keys to College, and let's just get into the program. So, I'm going to introduce myself, give a background of standardized testing. We will discuss test optional versus test blind. We will look at a case study and look at real admissions policies, and we'll have questions or comments. So, again, my name is Shamel Yamofio. I am in my 8th year of school counseling. I am a mother of 2 boys, a almost 3-year-old, and an 8-week-old whose head you might see right here. He's asleep. Anyway, I used to be a college advisor through the college advising corps after I graduated from UNC Chapel Hill. And when I became a college advisor, I started doing that because I was super inspired by my own journey as a low-income student coming from a single-parent household. And I applied to a lot of competitive schools. I applied to a range of schools. And what I liked and what I appreciated about my journey is that I had options when it came to college. I also earned a full ride scholarship through the Bill Gates Millennium Scholars Program, and I'm just extremely blessed. And I want to be able to share some tips and insights for other students who are like me growing up. So, again, as I was saying, I'm in my 8th year as a school counselor, but I also decided to start something of my own outside of school counseling, which is Keys to College, which is a college counseling business in which we reach out to students in need, students and parents and families and organizations that are in need of college support. So, background on the SAT or ACT. It was founded in the 1920s, and it started out as an IQ test for the Army. The SAT has never been static. It's constantly changed over the years. Since I've taken it, it has changed probably 4 or 5 times in regards to the timing, in regards to the sections, in regards to the amount of points. It's actually probably changed a little more than 5 times. They're constantly trying to revamp it. Recently, a lot of colleges have started going test optional because it has been shown that it's been biased against Black and Latino communities and low income communities. And the biggest indicator of score is family income. Now, we know that colleges are test optional, many of them. There are about 1,000 colleges that are test optional today. Some of it has already started before COVID, and many of the colleges started after COVID. Many colleges have acknowledged that test centers are closed and it has prevented students to having access. They realize that's unfair to require the SAT or ACT when many test sites are not even open to even give the test. I know there are some students who are just really gung ho about taking these standardized tests, and they are willing to travel 2 or 3 hours just to go to a test center that is open in there, that is open because there may not be one open in their area. I'm not saying I suggest that. I just know that has happened quite a few times. Also, colleges have acknowledged that they would like to have a more holistic basis to evaluate their applications. In the past, colleges have put a whole lot of weight on standardized testing. It has been GPA, grade point average, and SAT scores have weighed almost very equally in the process, the college application evaluation process. But now they're evaluating other factors more heavily, including essays, recommendation letters, and extracurricular activities. And we'll go over more factors that they are starting to consider more. And colleges have acknowledged that standardized tests have been biased to marginalized populations, as I mentioned earlier. Now, let's talk about the difference between test optional and test blind. Now, there aren't too many colleges that are test blind. Only about 1% of colleges are test blind. It means that they do not accept the SAT or ACT in the admissions process. And if your scores were submitted, it would not help you or hurt your admissions, uh, your admissions process. Test optional means that you will not be penalized if you don't send a score. But if you do send a score, colleges will consider the test score. So just make sure that for the colleges that you are submitting a test score for, it helps you. It's to your benefit. Okay. And sometimes you might ask, well, how do I know if it's to my benefit? Well, it all depends. In college admissions, that is the colloquial phrase that is said quite often. It depends because no one student or case is alike. It really depends on the schools that you're applying to, whether or not those test scores would help or hurt you. And that's when talking to a college advisor like myself or a school counselor or someone else to help evaluate your SAT score or ACT score to see if that's a score that you should send or not. Okay, so here are some resources, and I will include these resources in the description also so that you can go on your own to these links. Fairtest.org is a website and an organization that promotes test optional schools. So if you go on this website, you will see all of the hundreds of schools that are test optional. If that is something that is important to you, if you only want to apply to test optional schools, check out fairtest.org. Now, if you want to prepare for the SAT, go on Khan Academy. It's free. You can Google Khan Academy or you can go through collegeboard.org and it's free tutorial, free SAT tutorial. You do have to be quite independent learner for that. So it really depends on your learning style. There's also a book called Real SATs. This is old school. This is what I did back in the day in the early 2000s. And they have real SATs. They have about 12 SATs in there. And this book is about that thick. And you can time yourself and you can check your answers to check to see what you would have gotten on a real SAT. So that's a real SAT that had been given in years past. So I highly recommend you actually simulating the SAT for yourself, seeing how much time you have, what mistakes you made, things of that nature. And I also promote M&M Tutoring. It is a tutoring company based out of Durham, North Carolina, but they tutor nationwide, even worldwide, because everything is digital these days. So they do academic tutoring as well as SAT and ACT prep. Okay, so what does the data show? According to EdSource, the SAT and ACT tests are poor indicators of college readiness. High achieving and low income students are half as likely as affluent students to take the SAT and ACT prep courses. For obvious reasons, low income students don't have the resources at times to have an SAT or ACT prep course. Again, me as a low income student, when I was in high school, I was a part of a program at Princeton University, it was kind of like an Upward Bound program. It was called the Princeton University Preparatory Program, and they pay for us to have SAT prep. If I had not been in that program, I don't think I could say I would have been able to have access to SAT prep and know the tips and tricks to acing the SAT. Studies also show that extended exposure to trauma and other adverse life experiences, including poverty and discrimination, dampen students' performance on time tests. So again, students in marginalized communities may not do as well on standardized testing for a variety of reasons. And one is the anxiety and trauma, and especially due to it being timed as well. Now, your question, should I take the SAT or ACT and should I send my scores? Well, let me give you an example of some school policies. The University of Chicago says, we encourage students to take standardized tests like the SAT and ACT and share your scores with us if you think they are reflective of your ability and potential. And I think this is a really good litmus test. This is a really good way to tell, should I send them my scores or not? Is it reflective of your abilities? If you believe it is, then perhaps you should send your scores. If you do not think it's reflective of your abilities, maybe you should not send your SAT or ACT scores. And not necessarily saying to University of Chicago, but any colleges that you're applying to. Now, what does Columbia say? They say due to ongoing standardized testing disruptions associated with the COVID-19 pandemic, Columbia is adopting a 1-year test optional policy for first-year applicants. Now, this is interesting to me because I'm wondering, will they be test optional after this first year? This statement makes it seem like they're not going to be, but I'm just wondering what that means for the class of 2022 and beyond. So it's important to note some colleges may still require the SAT or ACT scores for certain majors or merit scholarships. I know if you may be a nursing major or something in the medical field or business or engineering, they may want to see more for your academic performance based off of standardized test scores. It really depends on the school, but I have seen them require it for certain majors and for certain merit scholarships, especially for very competitive schools. They may want to see how you perform just to see how you maybe stand out from the crowd. If you are applying to a safety or likely school, you may be able to skip sending the SAT or ACT score unless it qualifies you for merit-based aid. So let's get into that really quickly. So as a college counselor and in the college counseling world, we rank colleges in tiers based off of a student and the schools that they will apply to. So you have a safety school or likely school, which are schools that you could get into as a no-brainer. You could just apply with your eyes closed and you would get into that school. So that would be someone's safety school or likely school, maybe someone else's match school. And we'll get into match next. So a match school means that it's a school in which your grades and or SAT scores meet exactly the average of what the students had in that year prior or, in years prior. So if you see the average SAT or the average, a grade point average for a school is a 3.2 and you have exactly a 3.2, or 3.1 or 3.3, kind of really close to that 3.2, then that is a match school for you. It's not like you super exceed the admissions requirements or admissions average. It's not like the admissions averages are above what you have. They exactly meet it. And then you have a reach school. Now, Ivy League schools are reach schools for everyone, including valedictorians. They're reach schools because they only accept about 5 to 9% of the people who apply, right? So it means most people don't get into reach schools, okay? And so a reach school would be a school in which the SAT, ACT, or grade point average scores are a bit higher than what your average or what you receive. So if your grade point average is a 3.5 and a college that you're applying to, their average GPA of people who were accepted is a 3.8, then that would be potentially a reach school for you. So those are just tiers of colleges to consider. And again, to reiterate my point, my last bullet point on this page is that if you are applying to a safety or likely school, you may be able to skip sending the SAT or ACT scores. But if you feel like those scores will help you, go right ahead and send it. By the way, I want to tell you that you don't have to take the SAT or ACT for test optional schools. My suggestion is perhaps go ahead and take it, especially if you can get a fee waiver, just to see how you perform on the test. You don't even have to send your score. Just perhaps take it and see what happens. Now, I was a little bit ahead of myself, and I'll get to that point in a second. Now, what does the future show? The future shows that more colleges will be test optional permanently. So this is great news that I'm super excited about for a variety of reasons. And colleges will place more emphasis on other parts of the application, such as grades, self-explanatory, course rigor, and recommendation letters. Course rigor means, did you take AP classes, which are advanced placement classes? Did you take honors classes? Or did you take regular college prep, regular classes? So that's how they decide what is rigor, if you have actually challenged yourself in taking the harder level classes. Okay, so again, my 2 cents, I was a little bit ahead of myself. I do believe you should take the leap and take the one of those tests to see how you perform, especially if you can get a fee waiver. If you can take it for free, you really don't have anything to lose. See a counselor or a college prep coach like myself to consult about whether or not you should send your scores. Check college websites such as collegeboard.org or collegeresults.org to compare your scores. And keep in mind that colleges will be more flexible due to the pandemic. Students may not have been able to have test prep, and they understand that. So they understand that your scores may not be reflective of the test prep that you could have received if the pandemic had not happened. Okay, so parents, what can you do? Please hold your child accountable to deadlines. For example, there is a December 5th SAT. The deadline is coming up on November 5th. So make sure that you adhere to those deadlines. There is a late registration deadline. There is a late fee for that. So just keep that in mind as well. When it comes to colleges and getting everything submitted, there is a deadline. Like there's a November 1st deadline, November 15th, et cetera, et cetera. So please make sure that your child's documents are in a timely manner, even before the deadline, because you never know what may happen with technology. Communicate with your child's school counselor. As a school counselor, I understand the value of school counselors, but a lot of people don't really know our job. Please keep in touch with your child's school counselor. The school counselor to student ratio is way too large in this country. The average school counselor has about 300 students or 400 students on their caseload. And the more you're in touch with your school counselor, the more resources that your child will get and more attention your child will get. Seek out resources. I realize a lot of parents and students don't even browse their school's website or their school district's website or even their local library system. So just please be creative about where you find help and assistance, and consult me or another college advisor for help. I am here to help you. Thank you so much for your time. If you would love to talk to me more, I would love to talk to you. Please schedule a consultation with me. You can send me an email at info@keystocollegellc.com, or you can go to my website and schedule a consultation, which is keystocollegellc.com. And as you can see, I'm on social media. I'm on Instagram at The Keys to College, and I'm on Twitter at The Keys to College with the number 2. Thank you so much, and good luck with your college application process. Bye-bye.